There are cases that make you uncomfortable. There are cases that make you angry. But then there are those cases, the kind that leave you wondering how they ever happened at all. A kind, intelligent man full of purpose. A beautiful woman, charming, soft-spoken, so gentle that you'd never suspect a thing. They met, they fell in love, and then one of them didn't live to tell the story. This isn't just a murder case. It's a labyrinth of lies, of sweet voices masking something darker. A place where love becomes control and trust turns into a death sentence. I'm going to tell you this story. From the beginning. Every detail, every second. No judgment, no embellishment. Just the truth. Chapter 1. The Man Who Once Believed in Light. I still remember the first time I read about Travis Alexander. I thought, this is the kind of person everyone would want as a friend. He had a bright smile, a charming way of speaking, and always seemed full of positive energy. But what truly drew me in wasn't his appearance, it was his past. Travis was born in 1977 into a family that most of us would never wish to grow up in. Both of his parents were addicts, the house was filthy, infested with cockroaches and rats, and there were days when Travis went to bed completely starving. A child raised in such an environment could have become anything angry, destructive, even a criminal. But no, Travis chose a different path. At just 10 years old, after both of his parents passed away, Travis and his siblings were taken in by their grandmother. It was during this time that he was introduced to the Mormon faith, a religion that would later have a profound influence on the way he lived. For Travis, faith wasn't just a source of comfort. It was a compass guiding him toward becoming a better person. He started living by principle, constantly striving to inspire others, and never stopped dreaming of a future brighter than the past he had endured. Travis had a gift for speaking something that made him especially successful in the world of multi-level marketing, specifically with a company called Prepaid Legal. He became one of the company's top representatives, frequently invited to speak at events, train newcomers, and inspire hundreds of young people searching for direction. He wasn't the kind of person who cared only about money. Travis kept a blog where he shared his thoughts on life, and even began writing an autobiography titled Raising Me, a personal journey from an unfortunate boyhood to a man of ideals. He also loved animals, especially his little dog Napoleon, whom he treated like a child. Travis believed in love and marriage, in finding a life partner who would share both his faith and his values. But it was that very longing that ultimately led him down a tragic path. Chapter 2. The Girl Hiding Stormy Undercurrents. Jodi Arias was born in 1980 in Salinas, California. On the surface, she appeared to have a decent childhood. Her parents had stable jobs. She lived in a proper home, and she was a beautiful, intelligent girl who showed a strong personality from an early age. But the strange thing is, the deeper I looked into Jodi's life, the more I felt like something just didn't add up. She kept a diary, a lot of them starting from the age of 12. Her early entries seemed innocent enough about childhood crushes, or being mad at her mom for not letting her watch TV. But as she grew older, her tone shifted, it became colder. The entries turned terse, often filled with harsh judgments of others, especially her mother. Jodi frequently complained that her mom was too controlling, that she didn't understand her, and at one point she even wrote that if she had the choice, she would never have wanted to be born to someone like her. Her parents later told the police that Jodi became unpredictable during her teenage years. There were times when they found marijuana in her room, and when they confronted her, she didn't deny it, but she didn't explain either. She would just stay silent, then later refuse to eat, lock herself in her room, or sneak out and disappear overnight. I don't want to draw conclusions based solely on a few diary entries or rebellious teenage behavior, but there was something chilling about how easily she lied. Sometimes it was to avoid trouble, other times it seemed like she was just testing whether people would believe her. To Jodi, the truth wasn't a duty, it was an option. And yet everyone who met Jodi admitted she was incredibly charming. Big eyes, long hair, a soft voice, a calm presence. She worked as a waitress, studied photography, and dreamed of opening her own studio. She was the kind of woman you'd easily trust upon first meeting, because she knew exactly what to say to make you feel comfortable. And maybe that was the most dangerous part. Because when someone always seems likable, always puts you at ease, always chooses just the right words, it becomes almost impossible to see that they might be hiding powerful undercurrents deep within. And then one day, Jodi met Travis Alexander, and everything began to change. Chapter 3: First Glance and a Bottomless Pit. They met for the first time in September 2006 in Las Vegas. It was during a prepaid legal conference, a gathering of hundreds of ambitious young people, all dressed to impress, shaking hands, laughing, and introducing themselves like future millionaires. Jodi was there with her ex-boyfriend. Travis, on the other hand, was one of the keynote speakers. On stage, he was magnetic, smart, funny, and visibly confident. Jodi sat in the audience looking up at him, and like many others, she was drawn to his energy. They were introduced by a mutual friend at the after-party following the event. Jodi, as always, quickly made an impression. She smiled, gently, looked Travis straight in the eye as she shook his hand and said, "I heard your speech. It was really inspiring." Travis later recalled that in that very moment, he felt there was something different about her. The two of them talked for hours that night. They shared stories about faith, life values, and their pasts. Travis opened up completely, and Jodi listened intently. She said she was searching for a new direction in life, that she had been through some rough relationships, that she deeply admired him. Just a few days after the conference, Jodi broke up with her ex-boyfriend, and Travis started calling her every day. They texted through the night, exchanged emails, filled with affection. Travis, a man who always dreamed of stability and sacred marriage, seemed for the first time to have found someone who understood him both spiritually and emotionally. There was just one problem: Jodi wasn't Mormon. But for Travis, that was something that could change. He invited Jodi to church, gifted her a copy of the Book of Mormon, introduced her to friends in the congregation, and even arranged for someone to guide her through the religious teachings. Travis believed that if Jodi was sincere, she would feel the truth in the faith just as he once did. And Jodi appeared more than willing. Within a few weeks, she agreed to be baptized. Travis performed the ceremony himself. From the outside, looking in, it seemed like a beautiful love story. A successful man of faith who had overcome a difficult past. A beautiful, intelligent woman trying to change herself for love. But those closest to Travis started to sense that something was off. Because once she entered his life, Jodi didn't just want to be his lover. She wanted control. Chapter 4: Obsessive Love and a Quiet Loss of Control. At the time, Travis believed he had found the ideal companion. She had converted to his faith, diligently studied. The teachings appeared devout and seemed willing to change to align with his lifestyle. But soon after, cracks began to appear. They fell in love in every intense, explosive sense of the word. The two of them were drawn to each other with overwhelming passion. But there was one thing that left Travis feeling deeply conflicted: the physical aspect of their relationship. As a devoted Mormon, he believed in abstaining from sexual relations before marriage. But with Jodi, every boundary seemed to blur. She was assertive, seductive, and always made him lose control. And after each time Travis would write in his journal about the guilt, about the feeling of having betrayed his faith, Travis's friends gradually began to notice that something wasn't right. One close friend recalled that just a few weeks into dating, Travis had already started saying things like, "I feel like something about this isn't normal." She always wanted to know where he was, what he was doing, and who he was with. One time when Travis went out to dinner with friends without telling her, Jodi called him over 20 times in a row. When he didn't pick up, she texted things like, "Are you hiding from me, or is there someone else sitting next to you?" It sounded like a joke, but Travis knew she wasn't joking. After a get-together, when another girl posted a photo with Travis on MySpace just minutes later, Jodi called him and demanded he take it down. She didn't like him having female friends, didn't like him going out without her, didn't like him talking to anyone she didn't know. At first, Travis thought maybe it was just because Jodi loved him too much, but over time it started to feel more like a quiet kind of control. She didn't scream. She didn't lash out. She was gentle, sweet, but she was always there. Always there. One time, Travis went away on a business trip for a few days. When he returned home, he found Jodi lying on the sofa in his living room, as if she had been living there the whole time. When he asked what she was doing there, she simply said, "I missed you. I know your door code, so I just came in." Travis laughed nervously, but that night he couldn't sleep. Another friend recalled that Travis once half joked, half confessed, "If one day I end up dead, it'll probably be because of her." At the time, everyone thought he was just venting under the weight of a messy relationship. But if someone had truly listened, really listened, they might have realized this wasn't just a complicated love affair. This was a relationship where love was no longer what kept them together. It was obsession. Chapter 5. Sweet Smiles and Hidden Lies. Jodi never left Travis. Even though the two had officially broken up after less than 5 months of dating, she was still present. Sometimes she'd text him, sometimes she'd send pictures, and sometimes she'd just show up at his house unannounced, and occasionally without even knocking. There was one time when Travis brought another girl home. They had just entered the living room, and Jodi was already there. Standing in the kitchen, no one knew how she got in, but she smiled calmly and said she had just happened to stop by to return a few old things. The other girl left. Travis said nothing. After that, he changed the door code, but not long after his car tires were slashed. Not once, but 3 times. Each incident happened right after he had gone out with someone new. Travis suspected Jodi, but had no proof. And Jodi would send cryptic messages like strange. "Seems like someone really doesn't want you going anywhere, huh?" She began crafting stories filled with paranoia, that someone was following her, that she saw a shadow pass by her window, that she received anonymous death threats. She told Travis all of this with fear in her voice, like a fragile girl in need of protection. And Travis, though suspicious, couldn't cut her off completely. Part of it was because he was kind, but part of it was because Jodi always knew how to soften his heart. Late-night phone calls, tearful apologies, long journal-like messages, then seductive photos, and sometimes nights spent tangled in each other, followed by guilt in the morning. Jodi didn't just try to control through presence, she used technology too. She asked for his email password, then conveniently forgot to log out. Once Travis discovered she had logged into his account, read his messages with other women, and then sent anonymous threats to one of them. And what's disturbing is every time Travis confronted her, Jodi didn't get angry, she didn't yell, she didn't cry. She simply looked at him, sighed, and said, "I just want to keep you. I have no one else in the world." And somehow, that sentence made Travis let his guard down again. But then, things went too far. A female friend of Travis, Mimi, recalled receiving a strange email once. It warned her that if she kept seeing Travis, she would have problems. She printed it out and showed it to Travis. And for the first time, he began to feel truly afraid. He wrote in his journal, "She's like a ghost. Always there, always knows where I am, and she never leaves." From a beautiful, captivating woman who made him feel loved. Jodi had become a constant living nightmare. But the most painful part was even knowing that Travis still couldn't fully let go. And it was that space in between pity and caution, between desire and fear, that opened the path toward the most tragic ending of his life. Chapter 6. The Shadow That Wouldn't Let Go. Travis was beginning to want a clean break. He wrote more and more about feeling trapped. His journal entries repeated the same exhausted sentiment, "She won't leave. I can't breathe." Travis's closest friends all urged him to cut her off completely, block her number, change his email move if he had to. But the problem was, Jodi always found a way back, as if she knew exactly when he was at his weakest, as if she had a radar for detecting emotional gaps inside him and would slip into them gently, quietly, as though nothing had ever happened. Even though Travis had made it clear that he didn't want a romantic relationship, Jodi kept sending photos. She still called him baby in her texts. She still made his favorite meals and delivered them to his friends' houses to pass along to him. Sweet gestures, used as tools to confuse and entangle. At one point, Travis told her that he was looking for a woman who shared his faith, someone serious, someone who could be a wife. Jodi responded, "I'm still that woman. I'm just fixing myself." Then the next day, she sent him a recording of a private phone call between them, a very personal, very intimate, and very sensitive conversation. He started to panic. Why had she recorded it? For what purpose? Their emails began to grow more tense. Travis was getting angry. In one message, he wrote, "You are the worst thing that's ever happened to me. You are a demon in the form of an angel. You make me sick to my stomach." Jodi didn't lash out. Instead, she replied with a single chilling line, "You'll regret what you just said. Trust me." On May 28, 2008, Travis sent his final email to Jodi, a message over 8 pages long filled with emotion, anger, frustration, exhaustion, and resolve. He told her he knew everything she was doing, the break-ins, the threats to his friends, the emotional manipulation. And this time, he wanted to end it. For good. He truly believed he could walk away for real. What he didn't know was that Jodi was already planning a trip she told others was to visit friends in Utah, but before she got there, she made a stop in Arizona, specifically at Travis's house. Chapter 7. The One-Way Trip on June 2, 2008. Jodi Arias left California to drive to Utah, or at least that's what she told her friends, but she didn't take the direct route. Instead of heading straight to Salt Lake City, she took a longer path, one that passed through Arizona, the place where Travis Alexander lived. She borrowed a gray car from a friend, not her own vehicle. And more importantly, the license plate wasn't one that Travis's neighbors would recognize. She purchased 3 large gas cans and stored them in her trunk. This allowed her to fill up in advance and drive through the night without stopping at gas stations, places that usually have surveillance cameras. She turned off her phone for the entire stretch between California and Mesa. No GPS, no calls, no texts, no trace. Jodi arrived at Travis's house early in the morning on June 4th. According to her own statement, they had fun, talked, had sex, and took pictures of each other. Those pictures later became evidence. There were photos of Travis naked on the bed, photos of Jodi in the bathroom, and then one final shot, Travis standing in the shower, hand on the wall, water running down his hair. That was the last image showing him alive. Around 5 p.m., there was another photo blurry out of focus, but anyone who sees it gets chills. It shows Travis lying on the bathroom floor, blood everywhere. And then, the camera stopped taking pictures. Travis was murdered in a brutal, almost ritualistic way, 27 stab wounds, a deep cut across his throat so deep it nearly decapitated him, and a single gunshot to the head. The exact order, no one knows for sure, but what is clear is that no one could survive an attack like that. After the killing, Jodi wiped down the bathroom floor. She gathered the bedsheets, towels, and blood-soaked clothing, threw them all into the washing machine, and ran a regular wash cycle. She deleted the photos from the camera. And then, as if the job was done, she left, continued her drive to Utah, as though she had never stopped in Arizona. But there was one thing she didn't expect: Travis's camera. She didn't take it, didn't destroy it. She left it behind, inside the washing machine, and on its memory card. There weren't just sensual photos. There were murder photos. The final images, though deleted, were recovered through forensic technology. And those photos painted the portrait of a cold-blooded killer far more vividly than any story Jodi would later try to tell. Chapter 8: What Remains After Death. 5 days after Jodi left Travis's home, his friends started to worry. He wasn't answering his phone. He didn't respond to texts, and he didn't show up to a group meeting, highly unusual for someone as organized and responsible as Travis. On June 9, 2008, a group of close friends decided to go to his house. They knocked. No answer. The back door was unlocked. They stepped inside. And they never forgot that smell, the smell of death. One of them, who had a key to Travis's bedroom, shakily opened the door. The scene before them, blood on the bathroom floor, soaked into the carpet. Travis's body, already decomposing, curled up in a pool of dried blood. and right then and there, they called 911. Police arrived. The crime scene was chaotic, clearly the result of a brutal murder, but there were strange details. The washing machine was running, filled with wet clothes, and inside, a damaged digital camera. Its casing was broken, but the memory card remained intact. They sent the card for forensic recovery, and when the images appeared on screen, the entire investigative team fell silent. Photos of Travis just hours before his death alive, smiling at the camera. Then photos of him in the shower. Photos of his body face down, surrounded by blood. And finally, one last image. Blurry, as if the camera was falling mid-shot, capturing only part of a leg, a patch of skin, and a gray piece of fabric. It looked like the camera had gone off by accident during a struggle. The blood in the bathroom was tested. Results confirmed it was Travis's no surprise there. But on the wall, on the doorknob, and on part of a towel, there was blood from a second person. It belonged to Jodi Arias. At first, the police didn't arrest her. They called her casually, gently, just asking questions, and Jodi responded with an oddly calm demeanor. She said she hadn't seen Travis in weeks, had no idea what had happened. She seemed shocked, saddened, and repeated over and over, "He didn't deserve that." When asked about the small cuts on her hands, she claimed they were from an accident at the coffee shop where she worked. When asked whether she had driven through Arizona, she dodged the question, then said, "I don't think so." But then, the police showed her the photos. The photos no one could deny. Jodi looked down, took a breath, and said, "Yes, I was there. But I didn't kill him." And just a few days later, she told a story, a brand new one, a story involving two masked ninjas. Chapter 9. The Masked Intruders That Never Existed. When faced with irrefutable evidence, Jodi no longer stuck to the story of "I wasn't in Arizona." Instead, she began telling an entirely new version, one so bizarre that even the detectives fell silent for a moment after hearing it. Jodi claimed that on the night of the murder, while she was taking photos of Travis in the bathroom, two intruders, one male, one female, burst into the house wearing ski masks. They had guns and knives. They told her not to move. According to her, they murdered Travis right in front of her, and then in some strange twist of fate, they let her go. She cried as she told the story, clutched her head. Her voice trembled, but her eyes, they stayed dry. Detectives asked, "Why did they let you go?" She answered, "I don't know. Maybe because I'm a woman, or because I wasn't the target." When asked why she didn't report the crime, didn't call police, Jodi said she was scared, afraid they would come after her, afraid they knew where she lived. So she stayed quiet, drove to Utah, pretended like nothing had ever happened. The entire story sounded like a bad play. The police didn't believe her. The public didn't believe her. Even people who had once admired Jodi began to ask the same question: could it be that she really was the killer? And then a few weeks later, Jodi changed her story again. This time she admitted she did kill Travis, but according to her, it was self-defense. She claimed that on that day the two had sex, took pictures, and then had an argument. Travis became enraged. He shoved her to the ground, called her a slut, and tried to attack her. Jodi said she ran, grabbed a gun from the shelf, shot him, and then, in a state of panic, stabbed him repeatedly. That story at least placed her at the scene, but it didn't match the forensic evidence. There were no scratches or bruises on Jodi. No indication that Travis had attacked her first. And more importantly, the gunshot appeared to have been fired after he was already dying from blood loss caused by 27 stab wounds. Detectives believed that Jodi killed Travis intentionally out of rage, out of rejection, or because she simply couldn't accept that he was truly leaving her. On July 15, 2008, Jodi Arias was officially arrested and charged with first-degree murder. That's when the media storm began. The story spread across America. A beautiful young woman, a morally upright victim, a brutal crime scene with photos, journals, and a web of lies. And people began to call Jodi by a new name, the seductive killer. Chapter 10. The trial of the century and an incomplete ending. The trial of Jodi Arias began in January 2013, nearly 5 years after Travis's death. But despite the long wait, the media swarmed the courtroom as if this were a gripping TV drama, one the entire nation was watching unfold. Because this case had everything that draws attention: love, sex, betrayal, religion, death, and a beautiful woman who at times cried like a victim and at other times appeared chillingly calm. Jodi entered the courtroom with dark hair, square glasses, and conservative clothing, a far cry from the seductive image she once projected. She sat there right in front of the jury, recounting her self-defense story in a soft voice, occasionally choking up. Her defense attorneys claimed that Jodi was a victim of psychological abuse, that Travis wasn't the perfect man people believed him to be. They read aloud old text messages, played private recordings, hoping to shift the image of Jodi from cold-blooded killer to a woman pushed past her breaking point. But then, the prosecution struck back. They presented the recovered photos from Travis's camera frame by frame, second by second, showing a normal afternoon descending into a nightmare. They displayed Travis's journal, the emails he had written, including that final message: "You are the worst thing that's ever happened to me." And they asked Jodi, if this was self-defense, why stab him 27 times? Why shoot him at the end when he was already on the ground unresponsive? She didn't answer. She lowered her head. She cried. But the jury, they didn't cry. On May 8, 2013, Jodi Arias was found guilty of first-degree murder. She was eligible for the death penalty, but the sentencing phase dragged on for another 2 years as the jury failed to reach a unanimous decision. Finally, in 2015, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Travis was gone, his family shattered by grief, and Jodi. She lived, in prison, still receiving letters from strange men, still granting interviews, still insisting she had no other choice. And there's one thing I'll never forget. In one post-trial interview, Jodi looked directly into the camera and said, "If I could go back to that moment, I wish I had died with Travis." But to those who knew the truth, that didn't sound like remorse. It sounded like a performance. A final act from a woman who had grown used to crafting stories that made her seem sweet, believable, and never the one to blame. The Jodi Arias case wasn't just about a killer and a victim. It was a warning that not every smile is a sign of innocence. That love, when twisted by obsession and control, can become the most dangerous thing of all. Travis Alexander once believed he was loving someone who could change, but what he didn't know was that some people don't want to change. They just want to change you into someone weaker, more obedient, someone who can't ever leave. Maybe Jodi once loved Travis, but it was the kind of love that if it couldn't possess, it had to destroy. Thank you for listening to today's story. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear more true crime cases told with stillness, but never coldness. I'll see you again in the next case.